Hi guys, so I've finished work for a few days, and we are making progress on this 08S chainsaw. You saw that in the last one. Sorry about the light flickering, it just depends on what's going on and how the settings are. I digress. So this is the saw all in parts. Today the plan is to talk you through why I think it could have been put to one side, and then also go through some of the things that are going to need to be repaired and the reasons why. It's going to be an interesting video, but I'm going to get to the point. So the first thing, why do I think this saw was put to one side? It's always really hard to tell, of course. However, one thing that really stood out, where's the ignition coil? The ignition coil, you see that wire there? That was actually trapped on the outside like that, and it was actually touching ground. If that touches ground, that's it doesn't really matter what wire that is, that's going to the points, but regardless, if it touches ground, you're going to end up short-circuiting and you're not going to get spark. So that needs to be replaced. I'm going to put new wires in there. I'm also going to put a new kill wire. That's a solid core wire, and I'm going to replace it with a multi-strand wire. So that's going to be done. So that needs to be done. We will check the points and condenser, not today, but we will check the points and condenser. Some things that I've noticed that are going to need to be fixed. This recoil is sticky, so of course it's going to come apart. We're going to go through how to take these recoils apart, how they work. We will check the oiler is working. So if you spin this, I've actually got a little adapter that I made. We're going to put a bit of oil in the tank, spin that, and see if it comes out the oil hole. And in fact, today's video is going to be talking about removing bearings, how I like to remove and install bearings. Again, quick and to the point video. We're going to clean it up. Talk about temperatures and a few different methods of doing that. A couple of other things I've noticed. The piston that was in here, take a look at this. That is an indication that someone's used a metal piston stop. Another little crack, there you go, you can see it. So it's kind of like 2 o'clock, about a centimetre away from that central nub. That's actually a crack in the piston. So I ordered another good condition used piston and rings, so that is good too. Carby, worth mentioning on the carby on this saw. Now, is this the original? I believe it is. Check this out. Is it this one? Yeah. You see that movement there? That's the throttle shaft moving within the carb. The long and short of it is, what can happen, I'm not saying it will or is that will leak, can leak air, and then you will be pulling your hair out trying to find the issue, and it's actually part of the butterfly. So I'm not going to use this carb. I thought I had another, oh, there it is. So I have another one here, which we're going to use instead. That one's not going to be thrown away. It'll go back to the owner of the shop. And if we look at this linkage, this side, there's no movement in here. So it's nice and firm, nice and sturdy. Opens and closes well, but no kind of up and down, side to side movement, which is what we want. So let's get straight in with removing the bearing, and I'll talk you through how I do that. I use heat, it's my preference. So we're going to heat around the bearing, and then we will allow it to drop out. There we go. Bearings out. Screwdriver on the seal, not on the pocket. So now we have the seal out, the bearing out. Now what we need to do is to clean it up, remove the gasket. I like to do it with a Stanley knife, a utility blade. Just make sure that you try and avoid, well, you do avoid scratching nicks and dings into the magnesium, because it's not going to be the end of the world, but it's not ideal. So I will just peel it off wherever it's left over. I've actually found that I really like going over with a wire wheel, but not a new one. A worn one is a much better idea. So I'll show you that after as well. Okay, so you can see what it looks like beforehand. A bit grey, just very gently. I'm not hardly putting any pressure, and it's a dull wheel. Move around, and I'll just show you what I've done. You can see already, it's just starting to put just a bit of a sheen on the magnesium. That's all it's doing. I'm not trying to take a huge amount off or anything. Just trying to clean it up. See how much cleaner that comes out? In fact, you can still see the original machining marks, so you can really see I'm not removing anything. You can see the original part number. I believe that's the part number. You can see all the original machine marks. So again, just cleaning up the magnesium. So taking these off is really simple. Ta-da! Give that a clean up in there. Give that a clean up behind there. I apologise for the wind. Job done. Best to use low power spray. We don't want to damage any of the paintwork. Just rinsing it off. We might need to do another coat of or another wash, but we'll see how we go. So the worst has been removed with the degreaser, and now we're going to quickly chuck it into some hot water here with a warm sponge. Again, you've got to be so careful with this paint. Oi, Nicole. Maz, that's enough. You've got to be so careful with this paint because look around here, you see where it's all flaking off. I don't want to remove or damage any of that if I really don't have to. So gentle sponge, warm soapy water, low pressure water, and when we blow it off, low pressure air. So first thing we're going to put back in is this little C-clip. Pull it tight. And as I mentioned earlier, there's this little hole in here. We want to make sure that we don't block it with this clip. If you can see that way. Can you see that way? There it is. And we've still got that gap. So the next thing we're going to do, these are going to go in. Now this plate has to go on first along with this and this, which is the chain tensioner. And there should be a little piece of black plastic, which I've got to go find. I think it might be in the other room, which essentially just rests on top of the chain tensioner, keeps it nice and steady. We're going to grease this. We're going to use some still grease. So I have a little grease pot down here. This can then go on. That gives it a nice and smooth travel. And I've already checked that this is straight. These can actually bend. So at the end of the day, as long as it's not bent and that it moves freely, that's all that matters. So here it is. It just, well, firstly, it keeps everything nice and stable. It stops this rocking around. But I think it also helps to keep things a bit cleaner in here. So that then goes in next. Goes on top like that. Then we have the plate. Now I was going to wire wheel the plate and these two nuts. However, I don't want it to look shiny, brand spanking new. I actually want it to look, well, its natural age, just be in excellent condition. And obviously if anything needs replacing, then I can do that. So that goes on there. Make sure that the oil channel lines up with the oil hole. We're going to put just a small amount of Loctite 243, so it's not there to keep it in indefinitely, but it does help just to make sure everything stays snug. That's as far as I can get it. Now we loosen these off. Both these are spinning off like that, like that. This is now in place. Again, a little bit of Loctite. Over about 3 or 4 threads. Yeah, found it, there we are. 1.25 is it? That's 1.5. That's normally all it will take. Let's just make sure it does fit. And that's really nice. Okay, let's go blow it off with some air. So we're back in and this will move on really nice and smoothly. They're on, well, that one's on, that one's on. We are good. So all I'll do now, we'll quickly run down what we've done. This little plate has come off. We've cleaned, greased and replaced the chain adjuster, removed the 2 bar studs, cleaned them, popped some blue Loctite underneath there so they can be removed, but they are nice and well torqued down. We have taken the gasket off, cleaned that, cleaned out the inside of the race, popped the circlip back in or the C-clip back in. All I'll do now is we'll get the other case half together and we'll just see if we can get a feeler gauge in anywhere. Now, it doesn't really matter if we can get a very small one in because it will take it up with the gasket. But if there is noticeable gaps, then I'm going to take each case half as a separate half, flatten it, and then bring them together. So let's go get a feeler gauge now. I just want to make sure that it's not going to go in anywhere, or at least if it does, you know, there's the smallest gap. Just tight along there. And of course, don't forget when the gasket's in here and torqued up, and it's got the sealant in there, it's going to be absolutely fine. Doesn't go in there. Doesn't go in there. Doesn't go in there. And of course, you could just look in with a light in the bottom bits together. It's not going in anywhere along there. So I think we're pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with that. I think next video, we'll clean the crankshaft up. I'll have the parts on order, and we'll get this together, and then we'll go through testing things like the oiler, the condenser, the ignition coil, the wires, etc. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers.